Okay. Just a reminder to people, since tonight is a voting night, if they could sign into the chat as you come in, that would be good.
Juniper has a squeaky toy.
I think my little dog wants your doggy's squeaky toy. He's very, very interested.
Nice.
Okay, everyone, I think we're going to start. I want to welcome everyone to the last meeting of the season. And I appreciate everybody coming inside where you had an opportunity to stay outside and visit with your neighbors, I'm sure, with a lovely evening. I've made some mistakes on the agenda that I need to correct. I'm going to blame it on the heat. So I need to make a motion to change the agenda. I need to add the Inlet View School under old business. Paul Burrell is going to give us an update. Under new business, under the annual elections, I forgot, I made a mistake on the slate. And Ruth Ann Jennings is a member at large and our FCC representative. And I'd like to move the elections forward to be held under the vice president's report. So there are some people that need to leave early. Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passed. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. And we need an approval of the minutes from May 26th.
Move to approve.
Have a
This is
second?
Cheryl. Have we already done the agenda, completed the agenda?
I just did, Cheryl. Was there a mistake?
Yes. We need to put Transportation Committee back on, please. It's not there anywhere.
Okay, I can put the Transportation Committee under old business.
Wonderful, thank you.
And Can we have a vote on the minutes, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, then passed. Okay. Now we can go to business. Senator Begich.
Yes, I am here. Just to give you guys a brief report on where we are with the budget cycle. The budget has finally been transmitted to the governor. He's been reviewing it for the last few weeks. Or last few days, sorry. And then we've been meeting as an office, both Mercedes, who's online, and myself have been meeting fairly regularly with the governor and with his legislative staff to try to determine how much of the budget we worked on collectively in the Senate will be preserved. So I'm fairly sure, and I feel I can reassure you over a few things. One is that we're relatively confident on some of the smaller items that the downtown library funding will be preserved. That's a $2 million effort there. We're also relatively confident on in terms of the larger items that are out there, that the governor is moving in the right direction when it comes to school debt reimbursement payback. That would effectively, if the full amount was funded, would be $90 million worth of relief for Anchorage alone. That could be allocated to tax relief, property tax relief, or could be used to fund school constructions, possibly even the bonds that didn't make it. So we've prioritized that as a caucus, the Senate Democrats did, and we've really pushed hard to try to make sure that that resource is there. Secondarily, that triggers what's called the REAA, or the Rural Educational Attendance Area Fund, been underfunded for the last few years as well. It's formulaically connected to the school debt reimbursement and would be fully repopulated if indeed school debt reimbursement was upheld. Some other issues that we're working on is trying to clear major maintenance, which is school construction. We believe we've made some progress with the governor there. We've made progress on expanding out. I believe that he will not be vetoing the expansion of the food bank infrastructure. That's about $10 million. We're also, the blood bank was looking for a couple $1 million to help it have an ability here in state to examine our blood, which we now have to send out of state. It created huge problems during the COVID pandemic. We believe the governor will sign off on that based on our negotiation. We've been fighting hard for the Long Trail, which is the trail that would go from Seward, $15 million project from Seward to Fairbanks. There's been pushback from the Outdoor Council and some user groups who have gotten some bad information on what the Long Trail really entails. I'll suffice it to say, or let me summarize it to say that I believe that at the very least, the Anchorage portions, which will include portions that affect our community council, are likely to be preserved in the budget, and we're still fighting on that, but we feel very confident. A couple other smaller items that are big for the people that engages them. We've been advocating for the pay raises that were in the budget, which are part of the budget, as well as the concomitant bill that would support pay raises that came out of the House, that we are advocating for when we're in those meetings with the governor, myself, and Mercedes. And there's a whole slew of other items. I won't go into them all, John, because I know we don't have the time. But what I will just say is that the process has been very productive and it's been very open. And I think that the governor will likely sign the budget next week, and that in signing that budget will likely preserve a lot of these, this nearly $500,000 that my caucus was able to secure for the budget to serve real progressive needs in the state. On a related issue, there's been question as to whether or not the governor will be supporting the effort to preserve and protect the higher education fund, which provides our scholarships. It's a $400 million appropriation. And it's been, it and the ferry system in place have been subject to what's called a reverse sweep, where at the end of the year, those funds can simply be pushed into what's called the constitutional budget reserve and effectively place at risk those scholarships. And and in the case of the ferry system. So a bill was passed toward the end of the session that would preserve those two funds from being swept. And there's a question as to whether the governor will or won't sign that. We're fairly confident now, based on our conversations and our advocacy, that he will sign that bill. So that's where we are right now in terms of sort of the budget process, the bills process. I think the last thing I'll add is that we did pass the READS Act. The READS Act, in its passage, part of the negotiation with the governor was an agreement from him, if that bill passed, that not only would it provide the support that it actually does for universal voluntary pre-K, eventually within the state foundation formula, so 17 million eventually annually that will go into the base student allocation. We got the governor to agree to an increase to the base student allocation. It's modest, but nothing came out of the House. And so this is the only increase in the BSA that we could have counted on this year. It's about $7.5 million annually that will be going into the budget, into the foundation formula. And then we were able, as part of that agreement, to secure the House's appropriation of $57 million. We secured it from a veto with that, though I did have to intervene to ensure that the language wouldn't be lost in conference committee. And then the additional $2 million added by the House to the 3.2 we already get for pre-K will be protected by virtue of the READS Act passing. So those are the that's my brief brief report on the budget process and bills. And then of course you all know that I'm not running for re-election. If you don't know that yet, I did not file to run for re-election. I'm pleased to say that Lukey Tobin, who's been working with me on all these issues for the last 3 years, did file to run for the Senate seat, and I will be supporting her in that bid. So any questions that people have for me, I'm in and out of an event today, and so I'll be listening to the call and providing, I think, some report later on in the agenda. But if there's any questions on the legislative stuff, happy to answer them now. And Moira Smith just texted me that she's waiting for the SACC to begin. She's in the wrong room, so I'll text her back. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you, Senator, for your service in Juneau and a reasonable voice in our government.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Is Representative Fields here tonight? I don't see him. So is there anyone from the mayor's office?
Yes, sir. Hi, Portia Erickson here.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir. It's great to be back with you all. I apologize. I've been absent. I've been on maternity leave, so looking forward to being back with you guys. First thing, I just want to give you guys an update. The mayor's community grants is still open, so this has been an ongoing tradition of the mayor's office to have these community grants available to nonprofits. So that deadline is July 15th. And so any of you that are connected to a nonprofit or know any nonprofits that are working on some great projects, we want to encourage you to apply. I'll put the information in the chat, but again, that deadline is July 15th. Next thing we wanted to bring up, we had the chance of touring recently the Sullivan Arena, and we got connected with Project Hope, which works on getting Narcan resources to the community. And the state of Alaska has recently just gotten a grant for that project. So the mayor's office actually did a presentation with Project Hope to get as much tools and resources as we could in case we needed to administer Narcan, depending on what the needs are of the community. So I just want to encourage you guys, if you see that need, as especially being downtown and with some of the homeless population, it was a really great resource just to learn what tools are available, how to administer it, and the safety for someone that is experiencing an overdose. And that is a free resource to anyone in the community, and that's Project Hope. Also put that in the chat, but it was very, very valuable, and they offer that presentation both in person and virtually. This Saturday, there is the Korean-Alaska Friendship Day. As you know, the last 2 months, our Chief Equity Officer has been engaging in a variety of different cultural events, from Polynesian Association to the Korean population. So just want to encourage you guys to, if you have the opportunity this coming Saturday, to join the Korean community for their Korean Friendship Day. There will be a ton of cultural dancing and cultural foods, and just an opportunity to fellowship with that community. And that's this coming Saturday, and I'll put that information in the chat as well. One of the other things that's coming up next week that we're really excited about is Grow North Farms. It's in Mountain View. They partner with Anchorage Community Land Trust and Catholic Social Services, but their opening day is next Thursday. And this is just a really amazing thing. I know your district has a variety of community gardens, but this one in Mountain View specifically, it brings community from really all over the city, and it allows every Thursday for these populations to actually sell to the general public. So there's anything from spices to foods to vegetables, and on those Thursdays they're actually able to sell, and they also do tours that day, that opening day. Anchorage Community Land Trust and Catholic Social Services will be doing a tour, introducing you to the different people that have been organizing these community gardens. We did it last year and it was really awesome, and it was really an eye-opening to see all the sustainability that's going on. And then lastly, just wanted to talk to you guys about continuing the solid waste services program that's going on with compost. And so that is directly in your district. That's just a great way to engage in the compost program. It goes on through October, and with that compost program, it comes weekly. So that's just a great opportunity for sustainability and saving all of your leftover foods and scraps. So want to encourage you to reach out to Solid Waste Services for that program. And with that, I'll take any questions. I know probably you guys have seen the press to this evening with the fire. The mayor is there on Dowling right now with the chief fire and all the fire resources. So if anyone is a volunteer firefighter, we want to thank you for your service, because I know they're using a lot of those resources this evening. So happy to take any questions.
Portia, will you say one more time when the Grow North opening is?
Yes. So Thursday the 30th, and it starts at 4 p.m. and goes until 7 p.m.
Awesome, thanks.
And I'll add that in the chat too.
Are there any other questions for Portia? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much, Portia.
Thank you for your time.
Is Assembly Person Christopher Constant here this evening? Hey. Seeing, I don't see him. Is there anyone here from the Anchorage Fire Department or the Police Department? Okay, is Margot Bellamy here from the school board? The weather must be too nice outside for everyone. Is there anyone here from the Central Middle, Chugach Optional, Denali Montessori, or Inlet View schools?
This is Petra from Inlet View Elementary, but we don't have anything new to report.
Okay, thank you, Petra. Then I will do the president's report. I want to thank everyone on the executive board for their service this year. And I want to give a special thanks to Kathleen Hahn, Fran Derner, and Patrice Parker, who are retiring from the board. And I want to give a special thanks to Daniel Volan for his inspiring ability to speak knowledgeably to issues and at the same time find common ground for the community. And there just may be an opportunity for him to use these skills in his new role. Finally, congratulations to our new assembly person, Daniel Volan. The floor is yours, Daniel.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate that. There are some votes that are still going to be counted tomorrow. So, we'll wait for things to be official, but I do appreciate that. It's looking good. So humbled to have the support of my community. Is this the time, John, that I could give up my report and then we could do our elections for the coming
That would be good.
year?
Yes, let's do that because I think some people need to leave early. So this would be helpful for everyone, I think.
Did you want to announce who the
Oh,
candidates
okay.
so far are?
So we've been recruiting for the last couple for the last month or so, and we finally have a slate together. And on the slate, the president is John Thurber, the vice president is Harry Mead, the treasurer is Tamash Dayak, secretary is Hans Thompson, at large is Tom Begich, at large is Barry Pizer, and at large is Ruth Ann Jennings. And she has a dual role. She's also our FCC representative. And that's on the slate this evening. So that was what we were planning on voting on, unless someone else would like to run for a specific position.
I did see Cecilia in the chat said that she would be interested in potentially running for one of the member at large positions.
So we have 3 at-large positions, and we have 3 people on the slate for that. If we want to add another person, we could vote for those at-large positions separately.
And then I think also Moira Smith was in the running for one of the at-large positions as well.
Okay, so on the at-large positions, then we will have to do a separate vote on those then. So we have 5 people running for the at-large. Yes.
I'm sorry. This is Ruth Ann. I can withdraw as a member at large and just stay as the FCC rep. And just like continue to attend the executive committee meetings and check in with you guys so I know what's going on.
Okay, so that means we have 4 people running.
Is the layout of
Hey,
it?
this is Tom.
Yes. Yes, Tom.
Hi, guys. I logged in late. Sorry. I would also like to run for member at large. This is Martin.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5 people running for the at-large positions, and we have 3 positions. So we will have to do a vote on the at-large positions.
Looks like Cheryl has her hand up, John.
I'm sorry, Cheryl, go ahead.
John, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. How many at large? We only have 3 within our bylaws and no ability to add more.
That I don't know for sure.
Trying to look up our bylaws real quick. And then the other thing is I've only got 4 if Ruth Ann chooses to stay with one position. I've got Barry Pizer, Cecilia Donaldson, Moira Smith, and Martin Hansen.
And Tom Begich.
Tom Begich. Oh,
And Tamash.
Tamash is running as treasurer.
Treasurer, at least on the
Oh,
slate on treasurer.
okay. Sorry, thank you.
thank you, guys.
Cheryl, did you still have a comment?
No, sorry, I'm trying to get rid of my hand. I'm working on it.
Does anyone else would like to run?
So per the bylaws, the executive board, it does say the executive board, this is in Article 6, Section 2, the executive board shall consist of the 5 officers and 3 members at large.
So we have 5 people running for 3 at-large positions.
Yes, but just wanted to clarify that is the number of members at large per the bylaws. Oh, and Tom is locked out of the meeting, he says, so I'll try to let him in, but he says he is willing to step aside for others.
Okay, so then we have 4 candidates running for 3 positions.
Oh, shit.
Cheryl, you're on. We're hearing everything you say.
Oh, I'm sorry. I see now I was not muted. I keep trying to raise my hand. I would urge Tom Begich to please stay in the race. I don't think we want to. He'd be so valuable. So let's not just ditch him because he can't. Anyway,
And
because he offered.
This is Moira. I would be more than happy to step aside so that Tom can serve. Thanks.
Okay. This is a fluid situation.
We're doing good.
So
There's a
we have,
difference between
Mr.
willing
President.
to set aside and standing aside. So I think people are still running and
okay,
we could just have a
Yeah.
vote.
If I may, John, I think we should just go with the slate and then vote on the member at large positions and sort it out that way, because I think it's gonna be a long meeting if we're gonna start to decide this right here without any kind of other way to decide it.
Yeah, I do want to lay out some additional information for how we're going to conduct this vote. Our preference was to do a poll. We're not able to do that. So we're going to have to take the vote in real time, just like a resolution where we use our green check marks, you know, if you'd like to support somebody. So we can do that for one candidate at a time. The reason that we're not able to, I'm going to admit a couple. The reason that we're not able to, sorry, my Zoom is acting weird. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
but we have weird.
But we
Weird.
have cats on the screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what's
We
going
had-
on with
We had dogs on the
Um,
screen earlier. Now it's back to normal.
okay. So we weren't able to log into the FCC account because Mark Butler wasn't able to access a certain email that we needed a verification code. So we're gonna have to vote in real time, and it's not gonna be anonymous, just so folks know. It is gonna make it interesting for how we're going to be able to vote for, because I believe now we have 4 candidates for 3 positions. So we got Barry Pizer, we got Cecilia Donaldson, Tom Begich, Martin Hanson, and then Moira Smith. Were you gonna stay in?
Please.
Please.
Sure.
Okay. And then it looks like Mercedes has her hand up. Go ahead, Mercedes.
Senator Begich is in the waiting room. You want me to let
I
you know?
just got in. I
There you
just
go.
got in.
Great. Thank you.
Tom, you've been asked not to stand aside, and it seems like
Okay,
you-
I'm glad to, either way, I'm glad
Okay.
to do what the community wants.
Okay, great. All right, I'll turn it back over to you, John. Do you want to go through the slate first?
Yes, let's go for the slate.
Okay, so go ahead.
So who?
Should I,
all-
why don't I take over for you? Here's what we'll do. If we'd like to, let's vote for president first. If you would like to, I guess I'll put out a last call for any other people who want to run for president. I don't think that we heard from anybody. Is there anybody who wants to run for president besides Mr. Thurber? I'm hearing and seeing none. So if you would like to have John stay on as president, why don't you go to your reactions at the bottom of the screen, a little happy face, and hit a green check mark.
So Daniel, we're not voting for the slate. We're going to vote for individual officers.
Yeah, we'll just go one at a time. I think it'll go quick, one at a time. I suppose if there's no other candidates, we technically don't need to take a vote, but it might be nice just to have the information.
You could do this, Tom. You could make a move that the slate be accepted and then take a vote on that. And I think what you're though going for is you want each of us to say something. Is that it? Or
Sure. John, is that how you want to do it? I kind of want to defer to you and how you want this to.
Well, if no one's going to run for any of the executive positions, president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, we could vote for all those at once, get that one over with, and then do the at-large ones. It might go faster.
Why don't we do that?
So I move that the executive slate of the president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary be adopted by acclamation.
I seconded.
Unanimous consent.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so now we go ahead, Daniel.
So now I guess we will take the votes for the members at large. So the 5 candidates that we have are Barry Pizer, Cecilia Donaldson, Tom Higich, Martin Hanson, and Moira Smith.
Did you say there's a little green something to punch, or how do we vote?
Well, we didn't need it for the last one. We're going to adopt that one by unanimous consent. It sounds like there's no other options there.
But where does she find the green check?
Yes, it's at the bottom. There's reactions. It's a happy face. If you click reactions, and it'll give you different options, and one of them is a green check mark. So just so everybody knows going forward. Now I am a little perplexed on without having a. And I do apologize. My Zoom screen is still acting kind of interesting. That looks better now. How we're going to take a vote. Normally we do yes or no votes. You know, if we had the ability tonight to do a poll, it would give us numbers. Hans is suggesting let's do 3 rounds of voting for each position.
No.
Yeah. No. So, but the tricky part is we have 5 candidates here.
We could.
I think what we ought to do is vote for one at a time. I think everybody should vote for their one, who they want to be on the board, I guess, and we could just do it by sequential numbers. Tom, do you have ideas on that?
Well, it's difficult when it's difficult when you have 5 candidates and not a proper sort of, usually you could, if you had the poll function, people could select answers and that would be the way to do it. You could do a ranked choice or something like that. But again, you know, simply, you know, I'm going to be active in community council. I'd just as soon withdraw and allow it. You know, if somebody else would agree to withdraw, we just solve the problem. Usually you don't have this problem with community councils. So
I have a suggestion.
Go ahead, Chris.
So it wouldn't take too long, maybe just a couple minutes, to create a SurveyMonkey survey and put all the names in, and then put it in the chat and allow folks to see the numbers as they come up. So you could look at it in the chat. I don't know if anyone's a SurveyMonkey wizard, but it's not so tough.
Right. Do we want to go on with other items of business while I figure out how to do that?
I'm having problems with the chat. It's not, I'm not able to do any check marks, put my hand up. It's just not working.
Cecilia, are you trying to vote in chat or are you voting from the reactions button?
There's no reactions button on my Zoom screen right now. This is the first time
Cecilia,
I've ever
if you
seen
are
this.
on your phone, you have to go
No,
down
no,
to
I'm
the
not.
participants button at the bottom. And then when you see a list of participants, you will see the green check mark and the red X, etc.
No, I can see the participants, but
Oh.
there's no, I can see there's one hand up and there's one green check. I'm not able to do.
Do you see the participants as a list of names, or do you see them as the
Yes,
photos?
I do.
Oh, okay.
As a list of names, and I also see the photos.
Okay.
But the ability to do anything dropped off.
So
about
Daniel,
5 minutes into the meeting.
Ruth Ann, did you have a question?
I do. I have a question regarding the spelling of names because I can't see. There are two people, Barry Kaiser. I need to make sure I have the correct. Is that Kaiser? Barry? Nope.
P like in Peter, Pizer.
Kaiser. Okay. So Paiser?
Yes,
Okay, and then Martin Hansen, is that Martin? And then capital Hansen?
correct.
Thank you.
So let's continue on and until we figure out how we're going to do this.
So-
I think
If you could just quickly give me the names, I'll have the survey created in 1 second. So who's running? Sorry, I was late.
Barry Pizer, Cecilia Donaldson, Tom Biggett, Martin Hansen, and Moira Smith.
Okay, it'll be just a couple minutes.
And I'm in here, Chris, there's a way you can do it that says ranking. I think that's what we want.
Okay, if you got it, go for it.
I think I got it. Why don't we go on with other items of business? And then when I got this ready to go live, I will break back in.
okay, great. I think Kathleen Hahn is not here this evening. Ruth Ann, do you have a report from the Federation of Community Councils?
I do. The Community Council, the FCC had to hold a special meeting this month so that we would have a quorum to vote for the officers. And fortunately, they did get a quorum. They need like 19, we need 19 voting representatives for a quorum. So they voted in. Gretchen Stoddard is now the chair. Linda Chase is now the vice chair. Kevin Feynman is the treasurer. He's been the treasurer. Bruce Roberts is the secretary. I believe he's also been the secretary. And that's pretty much it. They are having a picnic down in Valley of the Moon Park on July 20th. It's a potluck and it's open to all the community councils. I think it's worth, if you have the, it's a weeknight evening, attending. There's a lot of interesting information. And I also have some ideas that I'm going to try to raise with the new officers about how these meetings are conducted so that there's more proactive communication between the community councils as opposed to just having presentation, from the mayor's office or DOT, sort of all the same presentations we have at our council meetings, to try to take more advantage of having this exposure to all the other community councils. Well, I guess I need to get the executive committee to agree to that. That was my plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth Ann. Any questions for Ruth Ann? Okay. We're going to go on to old business. Is Sheila Selkirk here this evening? I don't see her. So we're going to go on to the resolution in support of the Fairview transportation, Tamash Dayak.
Oh, I guess I'll go first then. So this resolution was brought up by Daniel last month. It is in support of the efforts by the Fairview County Council to address the long-term planning for the Federal Highway Administration projects and the request of a more inclusive and more long-term vision-based and community-based process. So we worked on this resolution. We have worked on it for the last month to come up with a solid supportive document, which includes all the necessary whereases and therefores. And what you have seen published is the outcome of that. And we hope that we all can stand behind our neighbors in Fairview and move forward to promote those goals which we have commonly. And I think I'm gonna hand it back to Daniel because I think there was a couple of notes maybe we want to make on that too.
Yeah, so we had a great meeting with representatives from Fairview. And you know, the issues that are important to them are a lot of the same issues that we've talked about here in the South Addition Community Council around things like making our infrastructure safer for non-motorized travel, traffic calming. So after, you know, it was important to me that we got their take on it, and I believe that we did. And so this is sort of an abbreviated version of their resolution. Also notable that this version does not call explicitly for a cut and cover, but allows for some flexibility in the process. So I guess we'll go ahead and take a vote on the resolution. Is that something we can?
Yes, let's go ahead and do that.
No.
So all in favor of the resolution that's been in support of the Fairview transportation plans?
And just so everyone knows, you can use your green check mark to vote yes under the reactions. If you have more than one person in your household and you'd like to have more than one vote, if there's more than one voting member, you can turn your video screen on and we'll count you twice.
Yes, Pam, please go ahead.
I only have clapping hands and a thumbs up and a heart and a crybaby and some. So can I use the thumbs up?
Yes, I saw your thumbs up on there.
Okay.
So
Okay,
I'm counting.
there's two of us.
Oh, okay. And you guys are both voting yes, I presume.
Yeah, and one of the issues, just so you know, is the reason Martin's on my computer is because I keep getting a message saying, wait for the host to let you in on his computer, and nothing's happened, and it's been a while.
Quite a few people have been booted out and then had to be let back in. So I don't know why that's happening, but we'll try to let's make sure all the co-hosts.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay, but just that's why. So
I appreciate that, Deborah. So I'm seeing, I'm going to call that 13 plus 1, so 14 in the affirmative. I don't see any opposed. I guess if anybody is opposed, I should also highlight that you can hit the red X for no.
the other thing is my son David's been trying to vote, and his phone shows a green check mark, but I noticed it doesn't show on the screen here.
I'm going to count David then too.
And Daniel, on the chat, there is one abstention.
One abstention. Okay. Yes. Okay. So we have one abstention, and I'm going to say that we had our maximum there. We had 14 green check marks. So 14 affirmative, 0 opposed, and then 1 abstention. And so the resolution passes.
Great. Thank you very much for all that work. The next thing on old business is the Inlet View School with Paul Baril. Paul, you have the floor.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for allowing me to talk tonight and provide an update for everybody. I'll make this quick. I just wanted to keep everybody informed as to where we are with the project. As you know, the bonds didn't pass, so the project didn't move forward this summer with construction. But we believe, and what we've been told is that it will be on next year's bond. And so we're still advancing the project forward. And so tonight I wanted to give everybody a brief recap on the current project timeline and process. At the UDC meeting a couple months ago, approval from the UDC for a renewal of the case has been determined. Upon request from ASD, the public hearing date for the renewal is set for September 14th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. What this means is that the original UDC application case is being renewed and the UDC public hearing will start over, and public testimony will be reopened. As the petitioner, we are not submitting a new UDC application, but we are allowed to submit additional supplemental information to strengthen our existing application. And so in advance, probably about a month in advance of the hearing, we'll be submitting some supplemental information to the UDC packet, which when then will be shared with the public. The MOA planning portal has been updated to show the new public hearing date. You can check that out on the city's website. The case number is 22-0024. And then comments should come in via the online portal, mail, or dropped off in person at the planning department. The deadline for comments is 1 p.m. the last business day before the meeting date, 1 p.m. on September 13th, 2022. And if comments are submitted after that date and time, they will be distributed as staff time permits. The UDC decided to allow previous testimony that resulted in the unintended denial of the case 2022-0024 to be incorporated into the renewal materials for review. Written or verbal comments may be submitted for the renewal by anyone, even if they previously provided comment on the application, as this is the renewal of the case and not a reconsideration of the case. The application from the petitioner is the same as this is a renewal and not a new case. The petitioner has the option to submit additional information prior to the public hearing, and they could also choose not to submit additional information. The staff report is typically posted the week prior to the meeting. So that's an update on the project timeline and the process with the UDC. I wanted to give just a brief recap on what we've heard from the community through the public input process and what's been implemented into the design, which is actually part of the UDC packet. The reduction of the building height to 30 feet to follow the neighborhood R2M zoning code, even though the zoning of the school site allows the height of the building to be taller. So we heard that from the public and accommodated and reduced the building height to 30 feet. We also reduced the parking to the minimum required by the zoning code and providing a larger green space buffer between the front parking lot and inlet place. We've also made adjustments to improve play and recreation locations. We also included design and placement of site perimeter landscaping to ensure views to and from the site is maintained for security purposes. Additionally, we took additional coordination took place to ensure that there's no disturbance to existing trees on the northwest section of the site. We included shorter decorative fencing within the site while maintaining the taller chain link fencing along the perimeter of the site for security purposes. Introduction of small landscape berm was included along the south side of the site to physically show site surface drainage is being maintained on the site. And this is incorporated with the planting bed, whose plants will help to absorb water as well. And then one last thing, based on input received regarding views to and from the school site, and due to the grades along the west, along N Street, there's some elevation differences between the parking lot and the N Street sidewalk. So we've looked at this and we are terracing the stormwater retention area to reduce the visual impact. So that's just a brief summary of what we've heard from the public over the last several months, what we incorporated into the design that was submitted into the UDC packet. So that's just an update or summary of what we've done. An update on the more detailed traffic study that was requested by MOA Traffic based on the original UDC application. We have heard back from the MOA Traffic Department, and they are in approval of the design and have stated that upon their review of the detailed traffic study, our team provided does a good job at explaining how the level of service is in an acceptable range, even though it will create greater levels of queuing and congestion during the peak 15 minutes before and after school. It is agreed that it is not unexpected near an elementary school, and these conditions are similar to other schools around town. Having the amount of on-site queuing that we have and storage with parking being recommended by MOA Traffic will also help alleviate concerns. So we've heard back from MOA Traffic on that. And then lastly, just wanted to provide additional input in terms of what we plan to provide we want to have a detailed community meeting in August, the first part of August. We want to gather some additional input and to hear people's thoughts. Currently, the date is to be determined, but we are thinking, I believe, the first week or two of August. So please stay tuned for notice on this meeting. At this meeting, we'll plan to present the following. We will be showing an animation that shows how the traffic will flow through the school site and have less impact on the neighborhood streets. And then we will also describe additional changes to the design that ASD and the project team is planning to present to the UDC for them to provide input on at the hearing in September. The presentation of the option, one of the options will be to shift the new school building 20 feet to the north. So it's as close as possible to the existing easement. The current thinking is that the shift will be presented as an option for the UDC to provide input on. That could be implemented if they choose. But that there's one of the things that will come with that is a trade-off that by shifting the building 20 feet will provide less open green play space on the north side of the site. So that's something we want to present to UDC and allow them to make a determination on how they want to see that played out. And then another thing that we plan to present to the UDC is an option for an appropriate site-wide parking reduction, up to 20% reduction of the parking spaces with the full reduced amount of parking to occur on the entire site will occur on the Inlet Place parking lot. This would obviously need to be approved by MOA since the reduction will provide less parking than required by Title 21, which the current design provides. And the current thinking is that this parking reduction will be presented as an option for the UDC to provide input on that could be implemented if they choose. The trade-off for that is having less on-site parking will mean during public events at the school, there will be more people parking on the neighborhood streets. So again, that will be an option that we plan to present to the UDC to allow them to provide direction on to us. And then lastly, just wanted to remind everybody to, for over the summer, to check the inletviewreplacement.com website for updates. And that also, if you haven't submitted your email address via the website contact link, please do so we can add you to the contact list. And then when we finalize the meeting time for August for the community meeting, we will send you an invite so you can attend. We are currently thinking it would be in person, probably at the school. And we might do it via Zoom as well. So just please stay tuned and submit your email address if you want to be included on the contact list. So that's all I had for the update tonight. I'll check out, and if there's any questions, you guys can go ahead and ask those.
Are there any questions for Paul?
I had a quick question. Paul, can you put a link to the website where people can put in their email addresses?
Yeah, I'll put it
for
in the chat
notice?
right now. Yep.
Thank you.
Ruth Ann, go ahead.
Paul, could you just restate the number, the case number for the UDC? I got 22-0024.
That is correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions for Paul? Okay, thank you very much, Paul.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, John, I got the survey.
Okay, let's go ahead then with the elections for the at-large positions.
Okay, I just put a Survey Monkey link in the chat, and thank you so much, everyone, for bearing with us while we figured this out. Great suggestion, Chris. So if you'll click on the link that I put in the chat, you should be able to rank your preferences for large.
Excuse me, this is Ruth Ann again.
Yeah.
I don't know all these people, and I wondered if anybody would, wanted to say something about themselves with respect to how long they've been in the community or why they might want to be on the council. Or
I think that's a fantastic idea, John.
Yes.
Did you want to go ahead and have folks share about that?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay. why don't we start with Barry Pizer?
So I've got my kids here at home, so it might get chaotic. I apologize. My name is Barry Pizer. I am a 23-year resident of Anchorage, moved to South Edition in fall of 2020, but had lived in the district at different times as a renter in the past. My wife and 3 kids. Sorry, one second. My wife and 3 kids are part of the family here, and my oldest goes to Chugach Optional. I work at Chugach Electric as a public information officer, essentially, and yeah, I just have wanted to get involved for a while, and especially motivated by having kids, and love South Edition. So appreciate your support.
Thank you, Barry.
And then next we could do Cecilia Donaldson. If you'd like to say a few words. You may be on mute there, Cecilia. I can see you, but I can't hear you. Oh, I think I can hear you now. Not quite. I'm going to come back to you. I can see you, but I can't hear you, Cecilia. So let's move on for the time being. Tom Begich.
Thanks, Daniel. I've been your state senator for the last 5.5 years and will be for another half year. But I've been in the district since 2000, the year 2000, I moved back here. I was actually born right outside of the district where Benihana is now. And outside of, excuse me, not the district, but the community council boundaries. And, you know, my sort of reason for doing this was both to be supportive of John and Harry and the team, and in particular to focus on civility and ensuring that that we don't lose our voice when we're dealing with public officials. And I have a unique skill set for that. So, I mean, I would appreciate the votes that people would provide me if indeed they wish to, but that's my reason for being here. I have a commitment to the community, and I think I've evidenced that in the last 5.5 years as a regular attendee of these meetings.
Thanks, Tom. Oh, and Cecilia, let's try you again. You know, I can't hear you. Is there a microphone there that needs to be turned on? Well, I'm gonna come back to you again. Okay, we'll circle back. Let's move on for the time being to Martin Hansen.
Oh, good evening. Hi. I've lived in the South Edition since '86. I was a community council president for 2 terms and vice president or vice chair for 2 terms prior to that. You know, I think the community council does very important things, and I really very much would like to support our president and vice president, and because they put in a lot of work, and I think that okay, well, I would like to support them. I think very highly of the South Edition, and I'm active in my community. I coach junioric skiing, work as a kindergarten teacher's aide. I thought I was retired, but apparently not, and I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Let's go next to Moira Smith.
Hi. So my family settled in South Edition in 1962 in the FAA houses. And I moved to South Edition in 2014. And I have long been passionate about public policy matters. And certainly in the last couple of years, that has been heightened. And I have nothing but respect for people who step up and put in the work, which is not always pleasant or easy, to work to find common ground on issues that matter. My son goes to Inlet View. My daughter is a rising 9th grader at West, but went to Chugach for a time when she was in elementary school. And it would be a real honor to serve you. And if not, I look forward to continuing to attend. Thanks.
Okay, and then I'd like to go back to Cecilia once more, if we can. I'm so sorry you're having technical difficulties. Did you want to type something in the chat there, Cecilia, as far as an intro goes?
Another approach might be to leave the meeting and come back in.
Why don't we try that? Cecilia, what I'm going to hit remove you, okay? And then if you'll try hopping on again, we'll see if that'll work. Okay.
Another option, Daniel, would be to have her call one of us and put the phone up to the
That's
things
a great idea.
of the audio.
That's a great idea. Nothing like a little chaos on a Thursday evening. So we'll see if
Daniel, if you think this is chaos, you got some learning.
Uh-oh. Don't want to move on without Cecilia being able to give her background.
While she's working on that, can I ask a question? This is Ruthann. In the chat, there is a, I think it's a web address, inletviewreplacement.com. Is that the address for folks to get on the mailing list?
That's the website address. And then on the website, if you go to the contact section and just submit your email address via the contact, that would get you on the list.
Okay. Let's see if we can hear Cecilia now. Here, Cecilia, what I'm going to have you do you have a pen? I'm going to have you call my phone number and I'm going to put you on speaker, okay? It's 907-947-7815. Hello, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there's a bit of an echo. Let's see. Let's see. Try that again.
Can you hear me?
She needs to turn off her. She needs to turn off her mute.
Let's
Her.
put you on mute. Okay.
Okay, is that better?
She has to mute our sound coming out on a computer. She has to mute us, not mute herself.
Oh, so why don't you turn your volume all the way down on your computer, Cecilia?
Just go walk into another room.
That works. Yep, that works. Because I can hear you clearly over the phone. So if you'll just move away from your computer, that's what's causing the echo.
Okay, is that better?
There we go.
Okay, I have lived in South Addition for 57 years. Was born in Turnagain. And so I'm pretty much a lifelong South Addition resident. I am a real estate agent, certified executive chef, and I also have 44 years of professional compounding pharmacy experience. I do some work with the cannabis industry and very interested in my community. That's why I'm interested in being on the community council again. I was on as an at-large member a little while ago, actually, and then the slate changed, and that happens. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you. I'm glad we were able to make that happen. So I'm going to hang up.
For some reason, the
go ahead.
screen was showing that I was a host.
Oh, Okay.
And then it wouldn't, and then it wouldn't let me make any comments in the chat and.
Oh, geez. Okay.
And I lost all ability to make any marks on anything.
Okay.
Can't raise my hand, can't do a check mark.
Keep me posted on that in the chat if you want to send me a direct message. Let's see if that works now that you're back in.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna let you go here on the phone, and
Okay.
then we'll proceed to our voting. Thanks.
Great, thanks.
Appreciate it. You bet. Bye. Okay, so I think we did have a couple join us. I saw Miss Graham joined us, and maybe a couple others. So I just wanted to point out, if you scroll up in the chat, actually, I think I can just drop the link again. So there's our survey. It's a ranking survey. So in order of preference, you can select who you would like to be a member at large. We have 3 positions and 5 candidates. So rank 1 through 5, and our top 3 vote getters will become South Addition Community Council members at large.
Daniel, one other thing, just to remind folks who aren't members, please don't vote. There's a membership requirement.
There's a membership requirement. There's also a requirement that you must have attended at least one prior South Addition Community Council meeting in order to vote. I'm going to give a minute or 2 more for folks to go ahead and put their responses in.
Daniel, this is Kimberly. I was wondering if this might be a good time for Chris to give his report since he has to leave at 8.
If John's okay with that, President
Yes,
Thurber?
that's fine. Please go ahead, Chris.
All right, thanks. It won't be a long report. We, as you all know, have an election that just concluded, and we're moving towards certification on the 12th of July. Anybody who'd like to come down to Chambers to celebrate us getting a 12th member, a second member for our district, you're welcome to come. It should be early in the meeting. We'll be swearing in the victor at that time so that we have a full complement of 12 members, and it's very exciting. Number of priorities that are moving right now. I think the biggest one for people to be very conscious of is, while the mayor has promised to close the Sullivan Arena, and that appears to be happening, it's going to be happening with the assistance of the police department. They're just going to be pushing everyone out. They claim that there is shelter capacity, which is what the Constitution requires according to the Martin v. Boise ruling of the Ninth Circuit. Well, there isn't capacity. And so the municipality is currently in violation of the US Constitution. And what's happening, if you drive around the neighborhoods, you'll see the greenbelt areas and around the shelters that do exist, they're starting to crop up groups of 5 and 10 people who are simply encamped on the street because there's nowhere for them to go. And so we are facing very quickly a very bad situation that will feel a whole lot like 2019 again, despite all the work that we had put together. So just pay attention. The Assembly has appropriated funding for various housing units, and the administration has not made that funding available. They've held on to it. And so while they say funds are there, it's not actually true. And so it's a regrettable situation, all of the suffering that's coming and all of the return to kind of the situation of people camped very close to your homes is avoidable, but it's coming again. And I'm not sure what the path forward is. And so we're going to keep at it, doing the best we can. Other than that, we're moving forward quickly into the budget season as the summer comes to a peak. And that means we'll be looking at the priorities. I hope you got your CIP list in and submitted. We'll be reviewing those priorities. The next big project that we have as a body is we are going to be moving through our final stages of our process to appropriate approximately $51 million of second tranche of the American Rescue Plan Act funding by President Biden. And so I'm pretty excited to look at the priorities and narrow them down. Of course, the problem is we had $256 million of requests for $51 million of funding. And so a lot of good projects aren't going to be funded, but a number of people submitted projects that were like, please pay for us to be able to build more housing, like to the Spinelli company, which is kind of wild, you know, just so they can profit off of it. So those kind of things wouldn't be funded anyways. But we are reconvening on that question towards the middle of July. You know, some of you don't like this idea. I know some supporters of Mayor Bronson here. I have an ordinance that will be heard on the 12th that establishes the due process for removing an executive that violates the law, Constitution, the code. And it's not intending to move towards removal, but it is intending to make the administration understand that they cannot simply violate people's constitutional rights and get away with it, that there's going to be a check, and the check is not the municipality and thus the taxpayers having to pay $500,000, $1 million, $2 million in settlements to people who are harmed. It's that the mayor has to figure out how to act in accord with the law. So also, yes, Anna put in the chat, the risk of fires is high. We have a fire that's happening right now in the green belts around Tudor and Elmore. I don't have any information yet on the cause. Lots of speculation, and if past is any prologue, then we have an idea of how it started, but it's too early to tell. The municipality, if you had to drive around today, you'll know that traffic got really confounding because we had a major arterial shut down, which gets to the point of the work people are doing, trying to make our neighborhood traffic more neighborhood and less regional. And so I strongly support that work of the council. And other than that, I'm here for questions, and I am excited to congratulate Daniel for his victory in the assembly race for the 12th seat.
Are there any questions for Assemblyman Constant? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, everybody. And I hate to run, but have a good meeting, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Chris.
I'll actually stick around until the poll is tabulated because that's an exciting process.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and we'll see the results. Hopefully this works correctly. Okay, can everybody see this? So it looks like our new members at large. Let's see. I have to move this to the side. We've got Tom Begich, Barry Pizer, and Moira Smith.
Congratulations, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for running too.
Thank you all. Okay, let's continue on. Under old business, we still have transportation. Cheryl, did you have an update on transportation?
Anna will pick this up.
Anna, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And Cheryl, I hope you're close by because I may need your help for some of this. So the transportation subcommittee has been busy with participating in the AMATS process. And I know several folks from this call and others have been participating in the day-to-day meetings. And I believe there was a meeting today for AMATS, and because my day job, I'm not attending those meetings. So I think at this point we've got some support, and we did get the assembly to support us in successfully adding some additional elements of I&L to an existing project for complete streets consideration. We're still working on trying to also get A and C Street added to the TIP. So we were not successful in lobbying that despite our submittals to that program for consideration by AMATS. The next task that I have is to revisit 2018-2019 Community Council resolution that talked about reducing noise and speed. So I look forward to getting anybody's input that they want to share with me on that draft. Please reach out to me. I can put my email in the chat if you want to work the language with me on updating that. Cheryl, is there anything else I'm missing?
Well, the part of the deal is that AMATS is still resisting complete streets, especially in the urban core. ADOT is adamant that they have full control within their own right of way. So this is going to be a discussion point for as long as it takes to convince DOT they do not, that they have to come to Anchorage and negotiate the projects that they finance so that they conform to our adopted plans, our land use plan, our climate action plan. So that is something that's just beginning. We learned from called a certification process that AMATS went through federally, that our assumption for decades has been that ADOT had carte blanche in their own right of way. A gal out of Washington, DC, whom I still haven't figured out how to connect with, contradicted that for the first time a year or two ago, and ADOT has not yielded on that point. So state officials, we will be looking to you for assistance on that. And I think I started to say that AMATS is not really inclined to finance A and C, but their logic, their excuses are very flimsy. And so we are looking forward to Meg Zelatel helping us out with that in the August AMATS meeting. That's it. Thanks.
Are there any questions for Cheryl or Anna?
This is Ruthann. Anna, could you spell your last name for me, please?
Sure, it's Bosin, Bosin, and I'll update my name in the
Thank you.
listing.
Thank you, Anna and Cheryl. Now we're going to go on to new business. Daniel McKenna Foster from the Planning Department has an update on Title 21 amendments for the ADUs. Daniel, you have the floor.
You're on mute.
Daniel, we can't hear anything you're saying. Daniel, are you there?
I can see him speaking, but I can't hear him speaking.
Daniel, you're on mute.
Daniel, maybe you have host as well. That was a problem before. So if you get off and try it again, perhaps.
I tried texting him because he might not be hearing you. If he's talking, he won't be here.
hear me now?
Yes,
Oh, you can. Fantastic.
yes, now we can hear you.
Okay.
Now we need the national anthem.
Yeah, right. So I'm doing an interview, man on the street kind of deal. Okay, let me pull up my slides if I could. Sorry about that. All right, I hope that sharing it won't make me lose my privileges, but we'll see. Let's see. All right, can you hear me and can you see the slides?
We can
Yes.
hear you and we can see.
Fantastic. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel McKenna Foster. I am long-range planner with the municipality. For several months now, we've been working on updating the accessory dwelling unit or ADU code. We started with a survey back in November, December. Been kind of gathering data. We've had a work group that's meeting. And actually, gosh, was it last month? John was kind enough to lead us on a tour of South Addition, and we looked at a lot of units. Unfortunately, well, not fortunately, some of those we looked at the zoning. I'm not sure if there are technically ADUs or just second units in R2M zoning, but it was very instructive, very informative. So thank you again for that. I had a great time walking around your neighborhood. So I'm just going to give a really quick overview of the proposed changes, and then there will be time for discussion and questions. Currently, we're slated to get this before Planning and Zoning Commission on September 19th this year. So there's plenty of time, and that will be the first time it's kind of open for the public process. So there's still plenty of time. And of course, you can always give me comments or questions in my email. With that, okay. So again, thank you, John. John showed us around the neighborhood. We saw a lot of kind of interesting housing and talked over some issues, issues with how driveways interface with the street, how front yards look, and that sort of thing. And so it was a great conversation. We collected a lot of information from that. And so again, yeah, there's kind of, maybe it's a bit of a technicality, but what counts as an ADU, what doesn't. A lot of South Addition is R2M, where in some cases a second unit is just allowed kind of by the zoning. And I'd be glad to answer more questions than that. So what is the current proposal here? The main things we're proposing to remove the owner occupancy requirement, remove the requirement that ADUs look like the primary unit, change the definition of the ADU to allow them to be placed with single family homes and duplexes, allow ADU Florida area to be up to 900 square feet or 40% of the principal structure, no minimum parking requirement, up to 5% increase in lot coverage allowed for ADUs, remove different standards for ADUs in class A or class B. That's more of a road system issue. Setbacks, same as the rest of the zone, no restrictions on the number of bedrooms, and height, same as the principal dwelling. So that's kind of the main thing. Does anybody have any questions or comments they'd like to discuss?
I have a question, I think I know the answer, but I just want to clarify. So the height, same as the principal dwelling. So for instance, all those big units that John walked you past that are built in our alleyways, if they fell under the ADU, they would not be permitted. Is that correct? Because the ones that are, some of the pictures you showed, the ones that are 2 stories and the houses are 1 story.
So do you mean under the current code or under the proposal?
Under the proposal.
So under the
If
proposal,
they were ADUs. Sorry.
So the thinking behind the height thing is basically that if somebody could build a house in the exact same spot and it's just part of the regular house, functionally, there's not a huge difference between that being the house or the ADU, right? So somebody could put in an addition and it would take the exact same footprint and be at the exact same height. It's very hard to forbid that just because it's an accessory dwelling unit, because the shape is the same, the form is the same. So that's kind of the thinking behind that. So I don't know, again, I don't know if these are technically accessory dwelling units or just a second unit allowed on the lot, or maybe some sort of duplex type of situation. But under the future code, the proposal, if it was approved, it would allow that, yeah, you can build an ADU that's kind of just like your house, and it would take up the same space as if you just add an addition to your house in the exact same space.
I have a question too. I guess I'm really concerned that that it would be aesthetically, it would be allowing a completely different kind and style and look and color. of the main unit. And the reason I remember back when the ADU was first introduced when Alan did it years ago, it was so that properties, the neighborhoods would not look haphazard and trashed out, which is really easy to do. And so with all of these items that are so separate, it almost looks as though somebody just may as well split the lot and call it a day, that there's two separate tiny lots. So I would have to say I really object to, well, for instance, my neighbors have the new ADU is orange barn red and gray trim, and they aren't planning on painting their blue and yellow and red trim front house. The neighbors in the back alley, I didn't complain about that, because I thought that when they got around to painting the front house to match after the garage house was built, that they probably would paint it the same color, and they didn't. So they're two entirely different looking units in every way: size, style, and color. And so it really does tend to make a neighbor. So at least if the color matches, I think it would help look like it belongs on the property. Thank you.
Daniel, I have a question.
Sure.
South Edition is a prime neighborhood for visitors because we're close to downtown. We have lovely sidewalks, lovely parks. So it's a great opportunity for homeowners to convert ADUs into Airbnb overnight rentals. And has there been any study to determine if converting ADUs into short-term rentals will impact opportunities for affordable housing in neighborhoods like ours?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. I'm glad you brought that up, because that has been a concern, and it's kind of a hot topic in the community, right? I know Girdwood is worried about that. Our approach to that is generally that if short-term rentals are an issue, the best way to deal with it is through a management system of short-term rentals, because it's no longer really about kind of the form of the ADU. For example, an ADU that has a short-term rental in it, or an ADU that has the long-term rental in it, it looks the same, right? And it functions in the zoning kind of the same. You can add in regulations about trying to restrict tenure within a unit through the zoning code, but it's usually not as effective as simply doing it just like you regulate kind of a hotel basically, or a bed and breakfast. In terms of have there been any studies done, Girdwood we're kind of looking at starting there and doing a sort of analysis of all the existing units, going on Airbnb and VRBO and all those places, and seeing what the actual need is. But I haven't seen anything like that or any funding for that within the Bowl area. And then the other piece of that I always have to point out is that if there is high demand for short-term accommodations, whether maybe it's transitional accommodations for people moving or doing a short-term contract, or maybe it's just for the weekend, then maybe that also suggests that there's more demand for guest lodgings in general. And so that's also a bigger conversation. You say, we have a lot of people who want to come stay in South Edition. We don't want short-term rentals here. Great. And maybe the municipal code can find a way to regulate that. And there are plenty of examples, but it's also then worth looking at, is there a need for more kind of commercial short-term accommodations in that area, right? Is there a need for more hotels? Does the zoning currently allow that just across the park strip in B2C or whatever? So kind of a long answer. We haven't done any studies. And in terms of affordability, that's also tricky because affordability is sort of such a nebulous term, right? I don't know that we have specific standards that affordability should be 80% of area median income, or 100 or 120 or what. Those are all kind of bigger policy questions. We would be glad to do that if directed, but our task in this has just kind of been make it easier for these types of units to be built. And really we've been looking at what are the existing obstacles to zoning. But unfortunately that question of how do you regulate these short-term rentals remains. And from our perspective, it really probably has to be something that has to be dealt with through a different type of regulation, just because you can put these rules in the zoning code, but if it's not enforced in the zoning code, then it doesn't really matter anyway. So.
Tomash has his hand up.
Go ahead, Tomash.
Thank you. So let's go back for a statement you made, Daniel, and that is this idea that the tour which we took has buildings which could be ADUs, but potentially they were just second units based on the current zoning code of R2M. But I would like to hear if you can expand on this idea of what is the ADU for if it is not tied to ownership, because this original ADU setup was allowing zoning districts where you would not otherwise have a second unit to be part of the development to add a unit to that space, and the ownership requirement was there in order to ensure that it's not speculative. So if you remove the ownership requirement, then you're basically allowing a second unit in even, let's say, R2A. So is that the idea that it's across all zoning districts? Maybe if you could talk about that issue a little bit, so we know the basis.
Yeah. Currently ADUs are allowed in all zoning districts, all residential zoning districts.
Correct.
And the most ADUs I think that we've seen have appeared up on the hillside, basically. So, and the purpose of ADUs, a lot of people want it to do a lot of different things. Our charge has kind of been make it easier to produce more compact housing. That's what the 2040 land use plan says. It doesn't necessarily say what type of tenure should be involved with, what the sort of relation should be like between the tenant or an owner or what. So our thing is just that, look, and Tomash, you know this, obviously working in development, but the thing about ADUs is it basically allows more people to be involved in housing production. So there's only that much capital out there. And if you only rely on these developers who do certain types of projects, you're always going to get the same type of stuff. By opening the doors for more people to get involved in housing production, you have more people who say, well, yeah, I have a little bit of cash lying around and I have the space in my lot. I'd like to try it. Maybe I want to house my neighbor. Maybe I want to do short-term rental, whatever. Our perspective is that we just need to get more units and we need to get more compact units because that's what the 2040 land use plan says. So in terms of speculative, speculative on what time frame, right? You could say that somebody who buys a house expecting it to appreciate in 20 years, that's also a form of speculation. Part of our real estate market is inherently speculative. And again, so I don't know, would they build an ADU because it increases the value of their house? I don't know. Would they build it because they want to get future increased revenue? Possibly. But those are much bigger issues that we can't really even explain or touch on, because our main charge is get more compact housing units. This is one way to do it. And as I always say, it's one tool, right? This is not going to solve the housing crisis, right? They're not going to be what people think of as affordable, just because it's like when you buy a new car is not affordable because it's new, but 10-year-old car, 20-year-old car, that slowly becomes more attainable to people and the price comes down. So there are a lot of things we're working on. This is one piece, this is maybe a tenth of what might be done. And again, as we all know, not everybody's going to put in an ADU. They don't want to deal with the hassle. They don't have the money. They don't have the space in their lot, and that's fine. Really, this is just saying, open the door for the people who want to create extra housing. And if we can have more people creating housing, then it benefits the community overall.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Cheryl's got her hand up there, John.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
The need to create more housing, I think we can all agree upon. South Addition and other old neighborhoods, older historic neighborhoods, were given the commitment that the municipality would not trash our character while they were at it. And I'm really surprised by the language I'm hearing, that your charge is simply to increase housing. And I assume that I can't find my quote here. I assume the affordable part was in there somewhere. 900 square feet is big for us, especially for something in a backyard. I think a typical garage is around 400. People were putting ADUs on top of big garages. Anyway, I believe that the language I've heard tonight, the commitment to adding housing, is ignoring the commitment the municipality made to maintain our traditional neighborhood character. So I'm not very happy tonight. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, the plan has sometimes conflicting values, right? And conflicting goals. And there are pieces in the 2040 plan that said preserve character, however you define that, and other pieces that say encourage compact housing. And how those get mediated is, again, it's a policy choice. And so those are higher level questions, but thanks for the comment.
Does anyone else have any questions for Daniel? Comments?
This is Cheryl again.
Oh,
go ahead, Cheryl.
I think it's worthwhile to pin down the next time we get to talk about this, what's an ADU and what's an acceptable second unit on a lot. I believe I heard that the ADUs were allowed to be detached. Remember that Tomash and his buddies had to attach the two homes they put together on H, and what is that, 11th and H. So I think it's worth it, Daniel, to please let us know precisely what the definition of an ADU is in an R2M neighborhood.
Well, the definition of an ADU is a dwelling that's accessory to the larger unit. So it has to be smaller than the unit. It can be attached, it can be detached, or it can be connected. But that's the way it is now as well. It's really about providing some flexibility. And somebody puts an addition and they want to make it an ADU, that's allowed. Somebody wants to convert their basement into an ADU, that's allowed. Somebody wants to build a separate structure as an ADU, that's allowed. That's
Again, I
currently-
believe before the ordinance went through, we were not allowed to build a separate structure on our lot. We have friends with examples. Also, I would ask that we watch our language carefully, because you just told us the new rules would allow 900 square feet or blank percent of the original, whichever is larger. And we do have homes here that I believe are under 900.
Yeah, that's something I can tell you that might be either an error to correct or something, but the primary intent is accessory, right? So as soon as a unit becomes bigger than the primary unit, it's no longer accessory. So you're definitely right on that. As far as the people who were not able to build a detached, if you could send me the examples, we could look into it, because maybe it was because it was detached, maybe it was because something else. Could have been a lot size or lot coverage issue.
No, it was, yeah, you might look into it. The lot, I can give it to you.
I'd love to hear
I'll-
that. Yeah, please do.
Put it out in public. It was, but the problem went away when the ADU ordinance was established.
So it is legal.
Today, it's legal. It was not legal until the ADU ordinance came into effect. And that's what I'm saying. Now you're changing the ordinance away from what we were committed to, promised in the first place. And so it feels very threatening.
Okay, there may be a miscommunication, but that piece is not changing, but I'd be glad to follow up with you a little bit more.
Sorry, which piece is not changing?
The detached interior or attached, that piece, as far as I know, has not changed significantly from the existing ADU code. There have been a few rounds of ADU codes. There's the first version, and then in maybe 2014, there's another version, and this is another version. So I might be misunderstanding which version you're talking about.
Yeah, we're in a misunderstanding, so we can let it go.
Let's go to Anna next.
Thanks. I'm kind of new to this topic, but I'm just curious on, are there, and maybe this goes to what Tomash was requesting, is a broader discussion about what the definition of an ADU, and I'm worried that it's going to be like trailers. Are trailers allowed to like just roll up and be on your front yard? Or, I mean, how do they need to have foundations? Do they need to tie into the actual water and sewer,
It has to have
or
foundation
support?
and water and sewer. Trailers are allowed in some places in the municipality if you're building a lot, and then you can only have them for a number of months while you're building it. But
There's like these tiny houses now that are built on, they look kind of cute in theory, but it's essentially a trailer.
Yeah, and those don't count generally because they're not on the foundation. So, and they're not if it's not connected to the water and sewer, that's another piece of this. It has to be connected to the septic or to the water and sewer. And a lot of those little cabins on wheels just aren't. So they're sometimes not even considered by the building code to be sort of that type of structure. But
I'd like to make a comment. I do think South Addition, we need to think about how we can have more infill housing. And we've talked about in our neighborhood draft plan that it's not about the architectural style, it's about scale and context. And so how can we increase housing in our neighborhood in a way, that doesn't overwhelm other properties with shadowing or also has people have to utilize our alleyways. And I think this is a way, if this is done carefully. When we went on our ADU walking tour, and from the photos here, some of these structures are really beautiful. So I think what would be helpful are a few things. Number one, if you could, I don't know if you'll have another opportunity to present to us on this since we're about to go into our summer break, but I think having a comparison of what is the existing code surrounding ADUs now, what are people allowed to do or encouraged to do, and then what are we changing? How is this new proposal that's being brought forward? What's the before and after? I think that kind of gets to some of the confusion around Cheryl's comments, because a lot of folks in this neighborhood have a lot of institutional knowledge. They've been around, they remember before, and they know how it is now. And so, okay, now where are we going? The other thing that I think is helpful is, and I think I heard you say this, but is separating out accessory dwelling unit from short-term rental, Airbnb. And what you're bringing forward, we're going to have to if folks are opposed to short-term rentals, or they want to put boundaries around that, want to say that you can only have a guest for a month or longer, or whatever it is, or they're not allowed in this area. That's going to have to be a separate policy decision than something that the planning department is going to come forward with. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, you can look at the same with single family homes, right? There's currently nothing that prevents somebody from renting out a single family home on Airbnb in the same way. So that's why it's also hard to do that for an ADU, but not a single family home, because you could say, well, I could buy 10 houses or 10 people on a block could all buy 10 houses and then rent them all out. And there's single family homes. The zoning it can, you can try to make some rules about owner occupancy for a single family home, but is it ever going to be, enforceable? So yeah, that's definitely something that short-term rentals are really best when dealt with as a separate issue, just because even when it gets put into zoning, if it doesn't get enforced, which often doesn't, or it gets enforced unevenly, it just isn't as effective. And when people see that, they say, wow, the zoning isn't effective. And also the city isn't meeting my needs. So it just doesn't really. So and it's going to be a difficult decision because it takes a whole kind of other apparatus to do that. But and as for the what's allowed and what's changed, I do have a chart like that, and I wonder if I could send it to John tomorrow, and he could circulate it. And of course, if anybody has any questions, they can get back to me about that. But I apologize for not bringing that up tonight. It's been, but I do have that, and I'd be glad to share it.
Yeah, great, thank you. And it looks like Cheryl has her hand up again.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. Other cities are dealing with the short-term rental issue, and they are, one of the standards is to have the lights on at Halloween. I believe it was on the Columbia River, Hood River maybe, was establishing their ordinance to deal with short-term rentals in the neighborhood. And we're already hearing complaints from our folks here. So that's all. Thank you.
My brother owns, and I think I told Daniel this when we were on our tour. My little brother has a quadplex in Portsmouth, Virginia. And he actually got cited because he didn't know that there was a requirement of a month minimum. So that he sort of pivoted to doing long-term rental with his quadplex. But there are ways to enforce that. There are ways to craft policy around short-term rental. There's a lot of conversation happening around that in Anchorage because there's a lot of Airbnbs in Anchorage, and Airbnbs do impact a neighborhood differently than long-term housing. So I think that's where, a lot of the concern around these accessory dwelling units, what are they going to be used for? And what are we encouraging or incentivizing? Are we subsidizing people's small businesses in the future, or is the intent for more housing for people who live, work, and play in Anchorage? So those conversations I think are going to be very important here in the near term. But I appreciate you bringing this, Daniel. And I think as long as we have ideas of what the implementation is going to look like with this and how that compares to how it is now, that would be really helpful.
Daniel, I have another comment. I think 2040 was well thought out. And I think the policies in 2040 are geared for additional housing for people to live here. 2040 wasn't geared towards, accommodating visitors who need a convenient overnight. Sorry for that. Sorry for my neighbors' loud vehicles. 2040 was really geared to trying to provide additional housing for people who live here and in an affordable manner and to use the land efficiently. I don't really recall in 2040 saying, let's just build or allow any type of housing for any type of purpose. I mean, I don't think it was intended for short-term rentals. And I think that is a concern that a neighborhood like ours will have. And I think there's a way that you could have policies in place to assure us that these changes to ADUs really is going to provide more affordable housing for people who live here.
Well, I think you're right. I think when the 2040 land use plan came out in 2016, short-term rentals, Airbnbs were not nearly the thing they were now. I'm sharing a page from that where it specifically says that they're looking for compact housing types. And you're right, we're just looking for housing. Our role in controlling zoning is kind of mediating zoning is just all we can do is sort of try and do one or two things at a time. And I hear loud and clear, and I've heard this from every group, that people are concerned about short-term rentals. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I will say that it's almost impossible to successfully deal with short-term rentals in zoning code because you're always kind of dealing with it obliquely. For example, the lights have to be on Halloween. To write that into code, you're writing a hard requirement in, but there's no clear nexus between cause and effect, right? Like I might live in my house, or my grandma might live in my ADU and she forgets to turn her lights on Halloween. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. And there are all sorts of things trying to craft the code in a way that's sort of in the zoning, that's zoning enforceable. It's just so much easier to do it through, just like we regulate bed and breakfasts or basically hotels, honestly, because an Airbnb, it really kind of functions in the same way. So yeah, I absolutely agree. The plan, the 2040 land use plan does not say we want to encourage short-term rentals. We in the Muni are also not saying, hey, we want people to build a bunch of short-term rentals. Our focus, and one of our biggest partners on this project, has been AARP, because AARP nationwide has had a huge push to focus on housing so people can age in place, basically. So I used to work in Oregon. I worked as a housing planner, and we had people coming in who were retiring, living in these big houses they couldn't afford anymore. And they said, I'd love to live in my neighborhood, but there's nothing I can afford here, because they were big, large lot houses, and there was nothing they could move into. And this is one of those ways that people can age in place, because as you get older, you don't have the same space needs. Your kids move out. But if there's nothing in your neighborhood that can accommodate you at that smaller scale and maybe be on your same street, you have to go somewhere else. And that's devastating for people. So our approach, we've been working with AARP, and AARP has been one of the biggest champion projects from the beginning. It's really just about, we want these units so we have a little bit of flexibility, right? from our perspective, ADUs are sort of like a bit of a buffer or an overflow. It's for maybe somebody comes and they're moving to a new city and they can't find housing yet. They go to an Airbnb. Maybe somebody in your family gets sick. They go to live in an ADU. And in these cases, yeah, it would be these longer term 2 week, 3 week, 4 week. But again, we're kind of agnostic on that position. We're just focused on, we want to get more units, hoping that when people have these units, then they'll make the decision about how to use them or rent them or give them away to people based on the other various incentives that happen in the market. But most important is just get the units there, right? Like if South Addition got 10 more ADUs, that means 10 more people can age in place. If maybe there's that short-term rental regulation in place. So I do want to confirm, yeah, the plan does not say we want to encourage short-term rentals. And we're not saying that either. This is not about, hey, we want to make this a tourist destination. This is about, we need compact housing types because that's what the land use plan said in 2016. And this has been one of the key pieces of that since that time and will continue to be. And it's just, again, one tool in the toolbox.
And please remember that we're now, do not get rid of, well, we will be getting rid of the owner occupied requirement. That's a big deal.
That is a proposal, yes.
So we need your support in crafting legislation to make sure that these ADUs are really going to be housing for people who want to age in place, or affordable housing for people who want to live in the neighborhood, and not an extension of the hotels downtown.
I think if somebody who could craft a short-term regulation came to long range and said, can you talk to us, or can you write us a letter, we would say, the plan says this should be housing. This is housing for Anchorage residents. But if they said, put this into the zoning code, we'd say it is very difficult to do that. And you get zoning code that doesn't necessarily solve the problem. There's a more effective way to do it. And it's through kind of it's like a bed and breakfast or a hotel. And then you say, okay, no stays less than 14 days or something like that. But again, you can't really put that in zoning code, because zoning code really only looks at the point when it's being built. That's the only time it really gets verified. And then forever after, it's just based on enforcement, right? So it just a less efficient way of doing it than addressing it directly. But if the municipality, the administration says, yeah, we want to address short-term rentals, long range would weigh in and we'd say, there's a lot of concern about ADUs being used for short-term rentals. I mean, we're hearing it on Girdwood, we're hearing it all over town. People have this concern. And we think it should be addressed as well. But we'd also say, we don't think it's very effectively addressed in the zoning code, which is the only area that it's sort of our own little purview.
This gets back to transportation as well, that zoning has nothing to do with transportation or vice versa. So it's time to go a little holistic on some of the issues we're facing, please.
Well, actually, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I haven't been able to mention this much, but for those who care about the environment, building infill is actually one of the best ways that you can help the environment. There's a study done. Sorry, I'm probably making everybody dizzy by doing this.
Yes. Actually, we know those studies. Thank you.
So by having more destinations closer together, you make it more likely for people to make a different travel choice, right? Yes, if the right of way is designed for only vehicles, people are still going to keep making that choice. But if you have more people living around stuff they can walk to, you're probably more likely to get more people making that choice. Not every time, but maybe 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10. And over time, maybe sort of the patterns change. And again, we can't control people's behavior. We can't make anybody travel in a certain way, but we can provide the options for them, at least on the zoning side, regardless of, what right of way does is right of way's purview. But so there is a piece, and it's also something we're considering. But again, and John brought this up, there are issues of right of way management, and we're sensitive to those as well. A lot of the parking stuff is looking at saying, hey, we can manage the right of way if that's really where a problem exists. And that's another way a lot of people complain about short-term rentals. Oh, there are too many people parking the street. Great, permit the street, and those problems get solved immediately, right? The people who don't have a permit, a right to be on that street, they get a high fine. And so those short-term rentals, all of a sudden, it's no longer convenient for them to do that. That's another way you can kind of deal with some of these problems outside of the zoning code and deal with them more directly. So it's more like you deal directly with the violator rather than obliquely through the owner or the facilitator or the renter or whatever. So
Daniel, if you took a more holistic approach, like Cheryl was saying, where you presented changes to the zoning code along with, proposed regulations to ensure that these new ADUs do really provide long-term housing, I mean, I think you would get a lot of support. But the fear is all this new construction may not add to the inventory for long-term housing. If it all becomes Airbnbs, you've undermined the whole concept of trying to provide more housing in the Anchorage Bowl under 2040.
That's a great point. And it would be very easy for us when we make our presentation planning and zoning, say, we're proposing on this side. We've heard a lot from the community about this. We strongly encourage you to also look at A, B, C, and D to address these needs, because we might not be able to address them. They still need to be addressed for the public. So I'll definitely include that. Thank you for that point.
John, I think we should go to Tomasz for a final comment on this, and then we should
go ahead, Tomasz.
Sorry, I didn't know it was final, but it's probably time for that. Just a quick comment on this one in the name of the holistic approach that, as you probably know, Daniel, your colleagues are working diligently on getting through the R2 zoning amendments. And we have worked on those with them for years now, which is the code amendment, which is actually putting the exact opposite into the books, which is the pressure is to get bigger, larger, and full redevelopment. So that these two are two segments of the building industry or a building housing industry, which are addressing needs on the same area, if you're talking about South Addition. So maybe it would be a good idea to go look at those while you're developing the plan, and then see how they maybe merge into one package, and then have those competing needs addressed. Because at one time, what we get is removal of smaller units because it's economically feasible, and it's good for redevelopment and speculative development. So you're losing small housing stock, you replace it with larger ones, but then you're fighting the whole character issue, and then the whole issue of building intensities. Well, you could just do another unit on the front, and then you would do another rehab one, and then that's suddenly not interesting or not feasible for a developer, but maybe feasible for a homeowner. So it ultimately comes down to a thing which you can't regulate, which is not about zoning. It's about how development occurs, what happens. I think it's worth a discussion with your colleagues to see what overlap can be happening there, because these are two different segments of the housing markets, and you're absolutely right. The more housing, the better. Use of it can be regulated in a separate setup. I agree with that, but I think we have to be careful of how we put it out there. And I guess you heard a lot about it, so that's my comment.
Noted. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions for Daniel?
I think we've probably exhausted our time.
Okay.
Topic.
So let's move on then. Thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you, everyone. My apologies for the initial problem.
Thank you for listening to our concerns.
Have a nice evening.
Is Van Lee here from R&M Consultants?
Hi, John. Yes, I'm here, and I'm here with Noah King from DOT as well, and Jessica Miranda from Kinney Engineering.
So please go ahead on the presentation on the coastal and Ship Creek connection.
Awesome. You have you're on, Noah.
All right, thank you, Juan. My name is Noah King. I'm a project manager with Department of Transportation, and we are here to introduce you to the Ames Downtown Trail Connection Project. This project is a continuation of the municipal started project that culminated in the design study report in 2017, recommending connection between the Coastal Trail and Ship Creek Trail. This particular, you guys can see my screen, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. This particular alignment starts at Elderberry Park and ends at North C Street, where the Ship Creek Trail starts. We are currently in the environmental phase of this project. We have R&M and Kinney Engineering on board as our design and public involvement representatives. This is a match project, which I mentioned before, and it is going to be owned by the Municipality of Anchorage Parks and Recreation Department. They are in partnership with the DOT for design and construction using federal funds with some local match. We are currently exploring alternatives and looking at public input, which Juan will talk about more in a second. But we have a rough alignment as shown on this, this fact sheet due to some fairly significant constraints of where the trail could be constructed. The Alaska Railroad owns the majority of the land where the trail will be, and they are a constraint on the east side, and then the coastal tidal area, the wetlands on the west side and north side kind of lead us towards a specific route, which does provide non-motorized access to the small boat launch, which is underutilized by pedestrian and bicycle users. So I'll let Juan talk about our upcoming public involvement opportunities, and then we'll have time for questions after that.
So thanks, Noah. So what you see on your screen is the fact sheet that we've developed for this project, Downtown Trail Connection. We also have a project website. It's on here as well. It's connectcoastal2ship.com. I'll put it in the chat after I'm done giving my overview. I also sent it to John, so I think he has it as well as this fact sheet. Like Noah said, we have some engagement opportunities coming up. This is our first introduction to the South Addition Community Council. We know you're breaking for the summer, but we have organized an upcoming public workshop, public scoping workshop, open house, and we have a date, August 10th. And we're going to be at the Performing Arts Center on the first floor. It's that really nice lobby as you first come into the Performing Arts Center that faces Town Square Park. So look for a notice for that in July. We're also in July going to the Downtown Community Council as this project bridges both of your councils in your areas. So this is a really neat project. It's like what Noah said, there's several partners. AMATS is the funding partner. DOT is managing the contract because it's federally funded, and then the Parks and Recreation Department is the one that's going to own the project, maintain it, and they're the other partner on this project. So because this is a non-motorized trail project, it will go through the Municipality of Anchorage's trail review process. So a little bit about process, we'll do some open houses with the community, we'll do mailers, and then moving forward, we will be going to the Parks and Recreation Commission for their review once we're at that phase. And then the Urban Design Commission also reviews it at the 65% design phase. And then, which is also on the fact sheet here, but the construction is anticipated for 2024 if funding is available. And so I wanted to throw out that date again, August 10th, it's a Wednesday, and we're going to be at the Performing Arts Center on the first floor. We'll update the project website with that information and then send out a notice as well through the Community Council, the Federation of Community Councils. But earlier I was on the council earlier, and I heard that Inlet View is also looking, and Inlet View Elementary project is also looking at an August date for an open house. So I just wanted to throw that out there so that we hopefully don't conflict and can plan around our two projects. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? I don't see anybody.
Yes, Anna?
Hi, Noah. I was curious how the railroad is participating in this. Do they have any new adjustments to make to their right-of-way fencing? Is it going to be improved? Is this an opportunity to kind of get some improvements with that shared right-of-way side?
Yes, the railroad is support of the project, and we are looking at a permit for placing the trail in the outer, yes, it's about 20 feet of their right-of-way. That will involve some additional fencing of some type in between the trail and the railroad and the other railroad facilities further to the north. All of this property just below the small boat launch is also railroad property. So there will be increased fencing and delineation between the railroad and the trail.
Is that over by the boardroom? Is that parking lot that it kind of wraps around?
The boardroom is down here near.
Okay, I see. Okay.
So yeah, this is a big gravel pad that I believe these are commercial fishing boats that are stored in here. And then the railroad uses the rest of it for various rental property, I think.
Kind of like a big cut to sort of go around that. But I suppose if that's the only option.
It appears to be the only option.
Looks like Cheryl and then Tomash have hands up, John.
Daniel, I think you touched on what I'm interested in. What are the obstacles to keeping a straight line and then also allowing the bikes to go around the boat launch? But what are the obstacles to keeping a straight line?
Keeping a straight line and cutting off
At the boat launch. Keep going at the boat launch. Take the shortest route at the boat launch.
That obstacle is the railroad's property and the planned track expansion, I believe, which will squeeze this access road to their property even more. And it will be a conflict of use with heavy truck traffic coming through this gravel road and also a pedestrian trail. Well, we figured that this circuitous alternative does provide access to the boat launch, and it is a recreational trail, so the shortest route isn't necessarily what we're after.
You talked about heavy truck traffic. Is that during construction or all the time?
I believe the railroad uses this is storage for truck containers all the time, or their it does.
And where is that, please? I don't know this map very well.
So the port of Anchorage is just to the north beyond this.
Oh yeah, I know that part.
Okay, so
the storage.
The storage is in this area highlighted.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it.
Tomash?
Okay, just one quick question, Noah. So just if you could reiterate that what we see here is the result of coordination with the railroad already. They gave your input to get to this point. Is that correct?
That is correct. That was our initial coordination was with the railroad to make sure that this was even possible. And this is the result of their coordination. We have submitted draft plans with this alignment to them for their review. And
then we have Harry and then Hans.
Hi, I was curious on how much weight has been put to the no build option, considering that the current path is down 2nd Avenue in front of the depot and then across the, by the Ulu factory and then connecting with the trail. Could that existing path be improved?
that was considered in the DSR initially, but is not as I guess, user-friendly to all modes of non-motorized transportation. This connection still allows for users to take that route if they want to go on a shorter route and not as scenic, but this route provides more opportunities for recreation, and it does not require crossing of the railroad tracks, which was a large advantage.
I know this is Hans. Is the 2nd Avenue connection to Elderberry going to be retained?
Yes, we have no plans to modify the existing trail.
Cheryl, did you have your hand up from before, or did you want to ask another question?
No, sorry, I'm going to take it down now.
I don't see any other questions.
Hey, Daniel.
Well, thank you.
Oh, I hear.
Can I? Yeah, can I say
Go ahead.
one last thing? It's Juan again. You asked about Elderberry Park, and I just have a quick update from the Parks and Recreation Department on Elderberry Park. They said the project is going out to bid, and so they should have next week, and they should have a contractor on to start construction this August.
Oh, wow.
So they just wanted to pass along that good news. Thank you.
That's exciting. Harry's your hand
Thank
back up.
Yeah, thanks. I just I want to make sure that that our guests left with the impression that this would be an asset to the community, and I'm looking forward to it. I think I do spend some time on that trail, and the existing connection is awkward to say the least. So thank you very much.
Agreed.
Yes. Thank you very much, family. Okay, we're going to proceed on to the Delaney Park Strip Plaza with Hans Thompson. Hans, you have the floor.
John, I think we have to have a motion to extend the meeting past 9 p.m.
Okay.
We can make a motion. We actually, our bylaws don't say we have to end at 9, but it is our usual custom. So why don't we go ahead and do that? I will make a motion that we extend the meeting until 9:20.
Second, Harry.
All in favor? Aye, it passed.
Aye.
Okay, let's continue. Hans, you have the floor.
Thank you, John. We had our third meeting for the planning of this G Street improvement. I was not there. Pam was there. Pam's here. She's going to give a summary of this third meeting, and I can be here, and Pam's here to provide any extra context after Pam speaks.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, so we saw, I don't have technical abilities. What we talked about was, and I think everybody agreed from what Hans said, that the plan B, which is this guy, okay.
This helps, Pam? Do you see that on there?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so at that meeting, the design people, and Ms. Lee is one of them, we talked about materials, and the group, I mean the company, or the design company, so they have a lot of different options and stuff that they showed us, and multi-covered pavers, stamped concrete, this, and then the you can just see, so that's, and we talked about the different advantages and disadvantages of some, including costs, and if we have a meandering path, they're going to keep that meandering path, and there's different ways to approach that and make, so those two separate things, the path and the plaza itself. So we have and there are the two proposed plazas. One is on 10th and one is on 9th. And we also went over quite a long time about like furnishings for it, and what is, and we all agreed, I think, that the bolder designs, the bottom two ones, would be nice to have. They look good, but there's some also some, and we talked about disadvantages and advantages of different kinds there. So that was interesting, but basically they're going to put how it gets designed, and this meeting didn't really, it was nice to have it and to see them responsive to what we are going to do, will live with, but anyway. So what's the next page? That is
Lighting.
Lighting, and so yeah, so there's festival lighting, or the holiday lighting, that's that is fun to do. There's projected lighting. There's integrated lighting in those benches, and as you can see there. And there's talk, and so you need a little bit of lighting that can be worked into safety features, ability to navigate the area when it's dark. So, and there's very clever ways and new ways to do that. And I guess it's all over the map too, as far as cost and stuff. And then we talked about foliage. And of course, it's but I want to go back to the seating is there's ways to design seating so that it doesn't encourage sleeping, or it doesn't encourage destruction by skateboards. So and that's just, and so that so it's kind of interesting in there. You don't have to make it unfriendly and mean appearing, but it'll do the job by the design. So it still feels welcoming, but it doesn't, it still solves the issues of that come about with public space. So back to planting, that's the same thing. There's ways to make plants like you don't want to have it too private for safety reasons, but you want it to be welcoming and maybe a little bit enclosing so that it feels cozy on this particular plaza, that they want it to be sort of a one that people can relax in and have quiet time in. So that's what we discussed, just designs, and I mean just materials, and it sounds like the company, if as they move along in this process, they're very nice. Mark and Van Lee and the other young man are very nice, and so and they seem very talented. So if something goes there, it will be a nice looking and well-functioning facility. So, and Hans, you're next.
Thanks, Pam. So I just wanted to just say that this has been kind of a push-pull project where it came to our community several years ago. We voted on it, it was rejected. The consultants for the municipality came to us last year in June and asked Pam, myself, well, asked for volunteers. Pam, myself, Tom Begich, and another lady, Izzy, volunteered. And we've gone through these three meetings. That was the planned public process. Now, from the start since last June, it's kind of been what you want, not do you want this? And I think that it's really on the community council to decide what proactive steps they would like to take to move this project forward, change the design of this project, or reject this project. So I, myself and Pam have done our best really to direct this to where we think it's what the community wants. But I believe we both kind of land on the fact that we want the community council to step up and decide what should happen. And I see Harry has his hand up. Harry?
Harry, go ahead.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Hans, for kind of framing that in that manner. I also agree that this is kind of like a pre-proposal proposal. Like, what would you say if we were to bring this project to you like this at this time? And so I would push back a little bit that the public process has happened yet, and I would hope that there'd be an opportunity to see the final proposal in the fall. And I just kind of highlight that is that what I hope doesn't happen is that this is the last check-in with the council we see, and then a proposal is finalized over the summer while we're not meeting. I know that that's probably not going to happen, especially with Pam and Hans at the helm representing us, but I just kind of wanted to voice that. I also think that there's one other element that we need to be careful of as a council, and that is the 1% for art element. I know that there's been, this project started as a memorial, and over two resolutions, we rejected that. And but the 1% for art committee could appoint an art project that became a memorial. And so I think we just want to kind of keep an eye on the potential for the art project to fully represent the neighborhood's wishes and our previous resolutions.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Gary. Thanks, Harry. I'll say one thing and then I'll call in Sheila, just that 1% of the art, the project cost is somewhere around $500,000, right? So 1% would be around 5,000. Not necessarily that much, but if you consider that there might be a private interest that would contribute lots of money, then it could look to be bigger and it could be not what we desire. So I would second that concern. Sheila?
So I've been familiar with the park since 1958, which it really dates me. And what I would say is that I think that the park strip is more than our neighborhood. It's a place where people from all over the city there's all different kinds of activities. There's events. And so what I'm wondering is that it's my understanding when the park department puts something together. Oh, so I'm afraid my dog's going to bark in a second. Put something together. Usually there's a public process to go through. And it seems to me some of the dangers about this is that the park strip is pretty wonderful. It's so useful in so many ways. And what could happen over time is there may be a desire for more memorials there. The question is that it would be nice if there was a bench with somebody's name on it that fits into what we have there, or it seems to connect to the place. I know in the past, the park department has been really careful about, where we set things, what the items are. And usually when they're memorials, you work a long time to make sure that the memorial fits where it's going. And so maybe what
Well,
I get,
Can I correct you for a sec, Sheila? There's no
Yeah.
memorial element to this right now.
Okay, but I'm telling you that if we start putting memorial there, that's going to become a graveyard looking place over time, because it's a great place to memorialize somebody. And we usually just save it for soldiers. But what I think really needs to happen, you asked what would I like to have happen? I think that there needs to be a compass in the newspaper that explains this is going on, and an invitation to the whole community about, what do they think that they want there. I mean, there could be a meeting on the park strip and there could be just some discussion. I thought some of the options there in terms of the benches and the trees and the way to support it looks beautiful. But the thing is that it's kind of like, we'll build it and then they'll come. I mean, it's like, I'm not sure this is really something that the city at wide would support it. I just think that there needs to be really a good public process to talk about it and figure out what do we in this community want to do on the park strip. And there might be ways to raise money to do stuff, but I don't think it makes sense for the park department to come over and ask us, how should we deal with the park strip? Because the park strip is so much more than our neighborhoods. So that's my feedback, and it seems like somebody should alert the public to know that that's happening.
All right. Does anyone else have comments?
Hans, I have a comment. I'm a little confused. So do we anticipate that we are going to get a presentation on the final design of this project and be asked to either approve or disapprove it?
There's no planned presentation. I would say the community council should request that. We have Vaughn on the line who's representing part of the district, and she has her hand up, so yes.
Hi, Hans. Thanks for the question, John. So what you saw on screen that Daniel showed is the concept planning that the advisory group did. Hans is on there, and Pam, and thank you for the update, Pam. It's a good summary of the advisory group meeting. But there's more public involvement and public engagement that's planned and it's the G Street plazas, right? It's from 9th to 10th, and it's the plaza space between those two streets in the park strip. and it's implementing. And I think the last couple slides on the presentation there has the master plan, deferred alternatives from the master plan that this G Suite Plaza that Pam and Hans and us have been working on is trying to implement. So it's trying to stay within what was already approved in your adopted master plan. So Hans and Pam have been great, and Senator Baggage too are representatives for the community council. I know you've come and given a presentation, I think an update last time, Hans, and then this is the update to the community council, and there's more public process. We haven't had any workshops. What you're seeing is just a concept. It's not a design. We cannot build to that. There's still decisions that have to be made with input from the community council. For example, we showed 6 options for seating. I think our meeting last week with Pam and Senator Baggage and the advisory group is that the boulders were great. Do we want to move towards that? Do you want to move towards that? So those design options are still out there. You have them as a council. You can give us your opinion on where you want to go with the vegetation, with the the pathway, the different types of materials, how they're put into the ground, color. There's lots of different options. So there's no decisions have been made. Just want to make sure we understand that there's more process to come. So
Venley, I'm still confused. In the additional public process that's anticipated, are you going to bring a final design in front of the community council for their review?
No, so we're not there yet. So we still need you to review this packet of materials and say, okay, we like concept B and we want the boulders to go there. So then we would take all of your input on the design options that we provided, and we would go back with Bettisworth North, who's the landscape architect designers on the project. And then we could work on and I'm not going to say final design, that would be the wrong word. We would work on the next iteration of that concept plan, which is something more refined to show the boulders, to show the materials, and a visualization of what that would look like if it were built. And then you'd have input on that. So it's very iterative. It sounds very inefficient, but it's the process that we need to work through with you. Does that help?
No, you still, you have people from South Edition right now adding their work and their participation on what you're doing. I mean, Hans.
Yes, the planning committee, yes.
Okay, but when this process is complete, will you present the finalized plan to the community council for approval or disapproval?
For review, yes, absolutely, yes. And we have to go through yes.
And what is your anticipated timeline on this?
That I cannot tell you because I don't have, we have to work on updating the schedule, but you're not meeting till September, so we may not get feedback from you on your design choices from the options we showed you, the presentation that was just shown. Does that make sense?
What makes sense to me is that we will have an opportunity in September or later on to have the community have the community council have an ability to review the plan, correct?
Yes.
Thank
you.
So
what would be great is to have that input on the materials selection so that we could say, the community council really likes the boulders. We'll move forward with that. The community council really likes the spirea or the large trees or.
So you have representatives from the community council. I mean, you have Hans and you have Pam who are participating in that.
Correct. But they don't want to make the decision for the entire council. They want to represent your interests. So Hans and Pam are saying, here's what we really liked. Does the rest of the council agree? If
that's not what I'm saying. I mean, our role was to design, to provide input on how this project would go. The community council wants additional presentation to understand if it's a project they want to support or not.
Correct.
And then you're telling us that will happen sometime in the future.
Yes, it'll happen in the fall since
good.
Summer is a break for you. Yeah.
Tomasz, you go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. I have a very simple question. I'm trying to find out now, and I only saw Park Foundation logo on the plans. And I'm not completely unclear whose project is this. If you can speak to the background, that would be great.
Tomash, so the project is the Parks and Recreation Department. So we're working with Tanya Hickok and Josh Durant.
I get that. So it's a Parks project, Parks Department project with Park Department funding, and you're seeking, I guess, a collaboration and insight from the South Asian Community Council, and then you will bring a plan back for approval. That's what you're doing. So just please help me with that one.
Yes, correct. That is the right process.
No, I'm asking is that the current status, that this is an actual Park Department project you are working on as a consultant for the Park Department?
Yes.
Thank you.
Moira Smith, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick comment that I'm concerned about the efficiency of trying to reach design decisions as a committee. And I wonder if we could roll this off to the executive committee for approval of what Hans and Pam come up with, or if there's another procedural way to proceed, because it feels like we're a little bit stymied.
Harry, go ahead. Harry, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry. This is a project that the executive committee has been keeping an eye on for a while, since the previous president. Thanks, Hans, for stewarding this. And I was kind of thinking that maybe the summer would be an opportune time for a charrette on this project. I don't think that this fits within the master plan of the park. I don't think this is necessarily a threatening project. I think that where this project first started, there was some concerns regarding memorializing segments of the park. But it's nice to see that has since evolved, and I do agree that G Street corridor could use improvement. Anyways, I'm optimistic about this project, and I'd love to talk more about it. And I do think that maybe it sounds like we're getting close to maybe having some community conversation about it. So I'd like to just kind of echo Dr. Selcraig's comments about having a community invitation to discuss this corridor. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Pam.
Yeah, I agree with Harry. One of the confusing things to me as a community member is that, and on this, I more like saw myself as more an oversight and kind of a communication link between the architects of this and the community council, not as a decision maker. I am not a horticulturist and I'm not a contractor. So so what Harry said is about a charrette is needed, because this feels like not public process. Just having Hans and I show up at a few meetings and hearing about all the pretty things, this is not public process. So it needs to be something different. And also, we're not the ones who are supposed to be saying what's going on and dictating. I don't know. It's supposed to come from the parks. We give input, but the parks and the developer presents the plan, and then we go from there. As far as we have as a community, have the option to reject or accept, I believe. But I understand if we want it holistic, so we get a better idea of, so that the developers get a better idea of what would be desirable, because we see how the park strip works. Like, we were talking about two plazas. Well, I noticed this weekend, and then I realized that's what happens every time. the cars and trucks from vendors drive up on G Street at 10th Avenue in order to access their booths. So having a plaza there would not make sense. And then the other thing that's happened is while we've been assured there's maintenance available, we've seen the park strip. It is a wreck right now, and they finally watered it today, but it's very concerning that there won't be money in the budget to support 2 really nice plazas that we should maybe focus on the one at downtown, leave the neighborhood one, grass and benches and flowers. So anyway, that's my opinion as a neighbor, and also a little bit of input of what being on the advisory.
And I share those
Thank you.
same thoughts. It's really, I would love to see the park strip green over a new project necessarily. So it's not an option at the moment, but I think the community council should weigh in.
Thank you, Pam and Hans. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I too like some of the photos that were shown and the kind of bolder designs. I think they're, like others have said, there are some things that could be done to sort of augment and beautify that area. Definitely echo Pam and Hans' comments about maintaining the park strip, as it currently is. What I would like to avoid, and this, I think our community council has learned this lesson well. I would hate to go on a summer break and then come back in September and have a presentation where many things have been decided without wider input from the community. And so for me, it sounds like from this conversation, we're probably at a point where it's time to expand that public process. And this presentation tonight has been very informative, and I think sort of cracks the door open. But I would definitely be supportive of having a meeting soon, sooner than later. A summer meeting in July or August. We can I suppose add it to our list of August design meetings. But I think it's important to branch out, and to Sheila's point about the park strip isn't just used by South Addition, it's used by downtown and and Fairview, but also the wider community for special events. So yeah, getting wider process. I think this is a good time to start that. Thanks.
Thanks, Daniel. Pam, go ahead.
I would like to say it is our neighborhood, and I think we do need to be the major decision makers. I know it is a wider community thing, but when it comes right down to it, we're the ones who live here 24/7. And I don't think we should minimize the fact that this is where we live. And I think that's important all over town. Every community has something, and just because more than the people in the community use it, that they can dictate what happens to it. I think we do need to take ownership of it. I do think we need to have at least some more input, but I would like to see the final say, or at least the largest part of it come from the people who live here all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Go ahead, Sheila.
I don't think I agree with you, Pam, and I wasn't initially going to address that, but the fact is that I walk up and down that park strip almost every other night at least, and there are people who have been coming to that park strip doing certain activities like hacky sack and all different sorts of sports, and the same people come there regularly. The park in that sense to them is their park, and it's their park to use. And that park was actually a South Addition was first, I suppose, but the park was a park. It was a airstrip, and it's been the center of so many things for the whole community. But I guess what I'm thinking, I mean, I'm not against this. I mean, I think it'd be great to make something lovely there. But what it seems to me is the question is who decided? I mean, that we're going to do something. Usually when you start with a project, you have some sort of sets of reasons that the public's come forward to address. And so it seems to me that what we really should do is that we should have a charrette, but charrettes happen usually after you've already talked to people and you've gotten an idea about what people think are important. And so it seems like we need to have a conversation with the community and South Edition, and then we need a charrette, because the charrette gets the opportunity to find out what the public really wants. So I really think it needs to be laid out so that the broader community and South Edition can comment on it from the beginning and participate and let people know what their views are and their concerns are and their hopes are. So that's my thought.
Sheila. Manley, go ahead.
Oh, thanks, John. I just wanted to add that I can take this feedback back to the Parks and Recreation Department project managers. And I think they'd be open to a summer meeting, broader meeting, charrette, however we want to make that meeting work with the format. We just didn't want to organize one without talking to you, because sometimes that seems to be disingenuous if everyone's out for the summer. But if you're open to a summer workshop of some kind, I can definitely let the planning department know, the Parks and Recreation Department know. And we could coordinate with you through email about when and how that would work.
Manley, please do that, because we're feeling left out.
Yeah, to that, John, I'm actually a little surprised. I know Josh has been coming to the community council for a couple of years, obviously different iterations of this project. But, I put out a call for advisory group members and we didn't get a lot of response. So we felt like that there wasn't interest, but I think I'm happy that I'm here tonight and giving you an update just by happenstance. Because we have the advisory committee on your community council that's been giving you the update. So I'm happy to be able to answer some of these questions, and I'm happy there's interest now, and we're definitely open to having more dialogue. The process with working with the advisory group, that's just one part of the process. I've done a lot of park planning with the Parks and Recreation Department. I actually used to be at the Parks and Recreation Department and the Planning Department, and our process is it's multifaceted. We work with an advisory group, and then we have greater community meetings. We have community council presentations and updates. We have a formal process we have to go through with the Parks and Recreation Commission, and potentially the Planning Zoning Commission and the Urban Design Commission. If you're going through design, you need to go to them as well. And then there's all kinds of permitting. So it's a bigger process than what we're talking about, what's happened so far. It's just the beginning of the process, working with the advisory committee. So I hope no one here feels like we're trying to circumvent anything. It's just, this is just one part of a bigger process, and there'll be more meetings.
Good. We look forward to future opportunity to contribute.
Part of what is confusing, I think, to folks a little bit is that the project has evolved so much. And when it was first brought to us, it was one concept. Now it's another concept, and I think a lot of that was in response to some of our comments and our concerns. But I think, not to speak for everyone present, but the sense that I get is that we weren't even sure that where the location that would be most appropriate, whether that was on the park strip or not, maybe possibly in a different park. So that was part of the conversation, and is just something that we wanted at all. And so the concept has changed a lot. I think what would be helpful is to have a public meeting and say, okay, here's where it stands now. Is this something the community wants? Because it has really changed from the initial presentation as a memorial with a certain purpose, and yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and that's fair. I mean, like all public spaces, the process to get to great public spaces is very dynamic. So you're right, it has been very dynamic. It's changed. It'll probably continue to change as we move to each next step or each phase. So I appreciate the comment, and I will take it back to the Parks and Recreation Department. And we have more planning to do. That's what we're doing right now. We're in planning. We're not in design yet. This is design is when you get closer to where you think you can build it, and construction and all that. So we're still in planning. So there's no decisions that have been made in terms of some of the things we talked about. So there's still time and opportunity.
I think we need to respect the time of the meeting and find a way to reach closure on this tonight.
Thanks, Hans. Thanks, Bentley, for listening to us.
I would like I'd like to make one last comment. Is that possible? And very short. I think maybe one of the ways to approach this is to send out information to the community and tell them what you're doing, and let them know that there's going to be a meeting at the end of summer, and that you want them to think about the park over the summer and bring to you the things that they have ideas that they have that they think are important to the park. You know, really have a conversation with the community, and maybe and put something in the newspaper and invite people in the community to get back to you about what appears to be important and what they want to do.
Thank you, Sheila. Sheila, I see that you're, go ahead, Harry.
Oh, I want to take my hand.
Harry, go ahead. Harry, you're on mute.
I was just agreeing with Sheila. I think that's it.
Oh, sorry. I misread that. Sheila, I see you've joined the meeting. Do you have a short update on the neighborhood plan that you would like to give?
Absolutely. I've been working quite a bit on the plan. I've outlined, and at this point, and I'm taking things that have been done and reporting in under the areas that need to be addressed. And I'm just putting examples of things that need to go under each chapter. And we thought we were going to get this done today, but we were going to post it today. I would suspect that we'll post it online in the next, probably 2 weeks at the most. And along with that is the description of how we have kind of addressed all the things that's happened up to now. And it starts out with looking at the comments from the city, that's not the plan, but also the things that'll be posted. And then a list of things that need to be done in order to get the plan done and actually in a format that will be approved. And then a set of chapters with identifications that are really demanded by the municipalities' ordinances that have to be addressed. And what I'm hoping is that in the next 2 weeks, we can get this out. Maybe we can have a special meeting if you want to talk about it. But I would like very much for people to look at it and realize that I'm hoping that the rest of this plan will be filled out and worked on by the South Addition residents that are already engaged and know what's going on. There's only, I think, 7 chapters or 7 elements, and it's all information that I think many people know more about than I do, because I haven't lived all of the experience. So well, I think I don't know how we're gonna get your attention, but we will make an effort to get your attention, and also to invite people who are not on the call tonight, who've worked on the plan over time, to take on a section and get it done. And I'm happy to work with people on their sections in terms of like putting it into the plan. So I'm happy to do that. Are there any questions?
Nope. Thank you, Sheila. Okay, so now we have community comments. Does anyone have any community comments? Nope. Okay. The next SAC meeting is in September.
Wait, I do.
I'm sorry.
I apologize. I just
trying to
wanted
rush.
to say hello again.
Oh, hello. Oh, you're running.
Hey, for folks, I am. So for folks who haven't had a chance to see me in person, this is what I look like. My name is Lukey Tobin, and I am running for the state Senate seat for representation of your district. I'll be knocking doors this weekend, so you'll see me, and please stop and say hello at any time, or feel free to reach out to me. And I love to grab coffee, particularly at Dark Horse, because they have these lovely orange cups. And for folks who don't know, I really love the color orange. So please stop and say hello. I'll put my information in the chat. I look very forward to talking with everyone in the district. Again, my name is Lukey Tobin, and I'm running for the state Senate seat.
Thank you, Lukey. So the next community council meeting is in September. It sounds like we're going to have a number of updates over the summer, so be checking our website for any additional design meetings on schools or on plazas or on plans. And that's it. Does anyone have it? That's it. I need a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn.
Thank goodness. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for being here.